The lake looked different after dark. During the day, it was a sheet of quiet blue ringed by pines and cattails. But under the rising moon, it turned black and slick, a single vast pupil staring upward. I'd driven 3 hours to reach this spot, an isolated mountain reservoir that a coworker swore was where the real monsters bite. I needed the solitude, the office noise, the endless emails, the way the city lights never really let you sleep. It all crawled under my skin. Night fishing promised stillness, a chance to hear water breathe. I parked at the gravel turnout and shouldered my gear. No one else in sight. The only light came from a thin crescent moon and the cold scatter of stars. Even the frogs seemed to be holding their voices. The trail to the dock wound through a stand of cedar. Damp needles softened each step, muffling sound until it felt like I was moving through a dream. When I emerged at the water's edge, the air smelled of iron and rain, though the sky was clear. The old wooden dock creaked as I walked its length. Halfway out, I set down my bucket and tackle box, slid a lantern from my pack, and lit it. A small flame bloomed behind the glass, throwing a circle of amber on the planks. Beyond it, the lake swallowed the light hole. I cast my line. The plunk of bait breaking the surface echoed strangely, as if the lake were much larger than it looked. I settled onto an overturned crate and let the night wrap around me. Minutes passed, maybe hours. I watched the lantern flame bow and straighten with a faint breeze. The world grew very small. Just me, the dock, the whisper of line between my fingers. Then the water stirred. Not a ripple from fish. A pulse. The black surface lifted and sank in a slow, deliberate wave, though no wind touched my skin. I tightened my grip on the rod. Another swell followed, closer this time. Beneath it glimmered something faint and green, like foxfire deep under the water. It drifted nearer, pulsing with a rhythm almost like breathing. I reeled in, but the line refused to come. It was snagged or held. I tugged harder. The rod bent nearly double, tip quivering over the water. A faint sound floated across the lake, so soft I thought it might be memory. A low hum, mournful and oddly human. The lantern guttered. Shadows leapt across the dock as the flames struggled, as if something were sucking the air from around it. Then the pull on the line ceased. The water flattened, perfectly still. I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping. Probably a big carp, I told myself. Maybe an underwater branch. But when I began to reel in, the line came back slack, cut clean as though a razor had sliced it. The lantern flared bright once, then died, leaving me alone with the black lake and the soft, endless hum rising from its depths. I fumbled with the lantern, striking the flint until my fingers ached, but the wick stayed cold. The moon hung low, a thin hook of silver, barely enough to sketch the outline of the dock. The hum beneath the surface deepened. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was vibration of pressure behind the eyes and in the hollow of the chest. The planks trembled under me like the slow heartbeat of something vast. I backed toward shore, careful not to slip. The wood felt damp and warmer than it should, as if the lake's pulse had soaked through it. Halfway down the dock, a splash erupted to my right. A heavy, deliberate plunge. I swung toward it, but the water lay flat and black again. No ripples reached the pilings. Another splash behind me. I spun, breath catching. Still nothing. Only that slow hum, growing almost musical now, a low chant whose words I couldn't place. The trees along the bank shifted. At first I thought it was wind, but the night air remained perfectly still. Cedars leaned inward, their dark tips bowing toward the lake like worshippers. I reached the shore and grabbed for my flashlight from the tackle box. The beam leapt out, harsh and white, but instead of comfort, it gave the world a brittle, dreamlike clarity. Mist was creeping from the water in tendrils, coiling around the bases of the trees, carrying the smell of rust and rain-soaked earth. Something broke the surface far out, too far to see clearly. The flashlight caught only the briefest glint. Pale skin or perhaps a sheet of whetstone. Whatever it was moved with slow purpose, not drifting with current, but advancing in a perfect line toward the dock. I stumbled back onto the path through the cedars, forcing myself not to run. Branches clawed at my sleeves. The hum followed, threading through the forest as if the lake itself had lungs. My car was a dim outline at the turnout. Relief surged until I saw the driver's side door standing wide open. I was certain I'd shut it. I swung the light inside. Empty, the keys still in the ignition. But the interior smelled of wet moss, as though someone had carried the lake into the cabin. A faint drip sounded from the roof. When I tilted the beam upward, water streaked across the glass. Not rain, condensation, thick and slow, gathering into rivulets. Then the hum swelled, so loud it vibrated the metal frame. The flashlight flickered. From the tree behind me came a new sound. Footsteps, steady and unhurried, splashing faintly as if the ground itself had turned to shallow water. I gripped the door handle, ready to dive inside, but a sudden cold breeze rolled across the turnout, carrying a whisper that slid straight into my mind. Stay. The command was soft, almost pleading, but it rooted my feet to the gravel. I couldn't move. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the lake's chant. Through the mist, figures emerged. 3, maybe 4, tall and narrow, their outlines wavering like reflections on disturbed water. They paused at the edge of the turnout, faces lost in shadow, and the hum deepened until it became a single, bone-deep note that belonged to the dark itself. I forced air into my lungs, willed my legs to move. The whisper came again, closer now. Stay with us. My hand finally jerked the door open. I threw myself inside, slammed it shut, and locked every latch. The figures didn't advance. They only tilted their heads, as if listening to some distant signal. Then, in unison, they raised long, dripping arms and pointed back toward the lake. The hum ceased. Silence slammed down so hard it hurt. I turned the key. The engine coughed once and died. Behind the windshield, the mist thickened into a wall of pale gray, hiding everything but those dark, patient shapes. The sudden silence pressed against my ears until I could hear the blood rushing in them. My own breath came in ragged bursts that fogged the windshield, mixing with the damp streaks already sliding down the glass. I twisted the key again. The starter whined, caught for half a second, then failed. A faint smell of lake water seeped from the vents, brackish, metallic, wrong. Outside, the mist churned as if something massive stirred beneath it. The figures remained motionless, their faces lost in the gray. One of them tilted its head farther than a human neck should bend, a slow, deliberate angle that made my stomach lurch. The flashlight lay on the passenger seat. I snatched it and flashed the beam through the windshield. The light skittered across the fog, revealing glimpses. An arm slick with water, a glint of eyes that caught the light like the reflection of fish. They began to move, not walking but gliding, feet never touching the gravel, circling the car in perfect silence. The beam flickered as if their presence drained the batteries. A sharp knock rattled the roof. I jumped, hitting my head on the steering wheel. Another knock, slow, deliberate, traveled from roof to hood like something crawling across the metal. I forced myself to think, phone. I fumbled it from my pocket. No signal, not even an emergency bar, just a blank screen. The driver's side window misted over completely, then a single streak cleared, as though an invisible finger drew downward. Letters formed in the condensation, crooked, childlike, return. The figures halted. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the lake answered. For beyond the trees came a roar, not of water, but of something vast inhaling. The ground trembled. Branches rattled overhead. A pulse of air slammed against the car, making the chassis groan. The figures turned toward the lake in unison. Slowly they raised their arms and pointed again, commanding, imploring. A flash of memory. My father's stories of this lake swallowing boats without a ripple, of old logging accidents that left men beneath the silt. He'd always said the water kept what it wanted. The engine suddenly roared to life on its own. I hadn't touched the key. The headlights blazed, cutting through the fog in twin spears. In their glow, the figures dissolved into tatters of mist, as though they'd never been there at all. Relief surged, then the steering wheel jerked under my hands. The car lurched forward, gravel spitting from the tires. My foot slammed the brake, but the pedal sank uselessly to the floor. The vehicle turned itself, wheels grinding, headlights swinging back toward the dock. The road ahead vanished beneath thickening fog that parted only in the direction of the lake. I wrestled the wheel, veins straining, but it held a will of its own. The car crawled forward, steady and unstoppable, gravel giving way to the soft dirt of the path. Through the windshield, I saw the dock emerging from the mist like a bleached bone. At its far end, the black water pulsed with faint light, as if something below glowed with a cold, green heart. The chant returned, now inside the car, vibrating in the seat frame, in my chest cavity. Words surfaced in the sound, old and cold, down where the deep remembers. The headlights flickered out. Only the lake's unearthly glow remained, guiding me. I yanked the emergency brake. It snapped with a metallic crack. The car rolled to the very edge of the dock and stopped as if obeying a silent signal. Outside, the mist parted one last time. A shape rose from the water, tall as the tree-line, pale and slick. It had no face, only a wide ripple of darkness where a mouth might be. The chant became a whisper, every voice I'd ever known layered together. Join us. The door locks clicked open by themselves. A cold spray misted my skin, smelling of iron and rain. Something unseen tugged at the handle from the outside. Slow, patient, inevitable. The handle eased downward with a quiet clack. Cold night air surged into the car, heavy with the smell of wet stone and something older, like copper and rotting leaves. My breath hitched. Each inhale scraped my throat raw. I shoved my shoulder against the door, trying to force it shut, but an unseen strength pulled it wider, inch by inch. The dome light flickered, throwing stuttering shadows across the dashboard. "Stop!" I shouted into the mist. My own voice came back to me, warped and distant, as if spoken underwater. Beyond the dock, the towering shape waited, luminous veins pulsing beneath a skin of liquid darkness. Ripples fanned outward from its base, though the air was perfectly still. Behind it, the lake stretched like black glass. Something brushed my ankle cold, slick. I kicked wildly, heart hammering. A tendril of water retreated, leaving a trail of dampness across the floor mat. The chant swelled again, louder now, every note vibrating inside my ribs. It was no language I knew, but my mind supplied meaning. Home. Below. Remember. I grabbed the steering wheel and twisted the key. The engine shrieked awake. Tires spun against the slick wood of the dock, spitting splinters, but the car refused to move forward or backward. The gear shift locked. Outside, the mist figures returned, reforming from vapor. Their faces were clearer now, features of people I once knew. My grandfather's kind eyes, a classmate who drowned the summer I turned 12. Even my father, smiling faintly. All of them pale, their clothes trailing into water that wasn't there. "Don't," I whispered, but the door yawned wider. A sudden gust tore through, carrying the icy reek of the lake. The figures extended their arms as if to welcome me. My father's voice, calm, pleading, rose above the chant. "It's all right. Come back where the water keeps you safe." I pressed myself against the passenger seat, every muscle locked. Then instinct flared, the flashlight. I snatched it up and flicked it on, aiming straight at the towering shape. The beam cut through the fog like a blade. The creature recoiled, its dark surface boiling with furious ripples. The chant faltered. I swept the light across the figures. Each one dissolved into sprays of mist. The dock groaned and shuddered beneath us, boards popping like ribs. The car lurched backward, finally free. I slammed the gear into reverse and stomped the accelerator. Tires screamed, wood splintered, and we shot off the dock onto gravel. Behind me, the lake erupted. A column of water surged skyward, twisting like a living tornado. The roar chased me up the road, a wall of sound that rattled the windshield and set every nerve on fire. I didn't slow until the trees gave way to the empty highway. Only then did I glance in the rearview mirror. The mist had vanished. The lake lay silent, placid, innocent beneath the moon. No figures, no glow, Nothing but calm black water. The engine purred as though nothing had happened. My phone buzzed, a signal again, ordinary and bright. I drove until dawn painted the horizon, refusing to look back a second time. Weeks later, I returned in daylight, needing proof that it hadn't all been a nightmare. The dock was gone. No pilings, no boards. Only smooth shoreline as if no structure had ever stood there. Locals shrugged when I asked. "Doc," an old fisherman said, "ain't been one here for decades. Water's too deep to anchor it." He paused, squinting at me. Strange thing, though. Some nights folks say they hear knocking out on the water, like someone trying to get in. That night, I lay awake, the sound of that patient knock replaying in my skull. I've never set foot near that lake again, but sometimes when the world is quiet, I still feel the cold tug of my ankle and hear the faintest ripple of voices calling me back to the deep. I drove to Miller's Reservoir for the quiet. That was the plan anyway. September evenings always pressed down like damp wool in the foothills, and the old reservoir, a long-forgotten piece of the county's water system, sat hidden at the end of a rutted logging road. No campsites, no houses, just a crooked pier the color of ash and a line of trees that leaned like eavesdroppers. I'd come armed with nothing but a tackle box, a thermos of coffee, and the stubborn thought that maybe I could clear my head before another week of double shifts. My friends fished in groups. I preferred the night. Fewer headlights, fewer voices, just a slip of water under the stars. By the time I parked near the gate, fog already threaded between the pines. It wasn't the milky fog that burns off at dawn. It clung low and blue, like smoke from a wet fire. The thermometer on the dash read 42, though the day had been warm. I hauled my gear down the gravel path. Each step cracked, twigs loud enough to make me wince. Past the tree line, the reservoir opened wide, a perfect oval of black glass reflecting a half moon. Beautiful, silent, empty, or nearly. A lantern glowed faintly at the far end of the pier, one of those old kerosene types, its flame a dull orange heartbeat. I paused. No car at the gate, no ripples from a boat, just that small, patient light. Evening. I called, voice bouncing off the water. Nothing answered. The fog thickened, swallowing the tree lean until only the pier remained, a lonely finger pointing into nowhere. I should have turned back, but the thought of sharing the night with someone unseen bothered me more than the fog, so I walked on. The boards moaned under my boots, old nails squealing. Halfway down I stopped. The lantern sat at the pier's end, flame steady. Next to it lay a tackle box older than mine, paint peeling to gray. But no person, no boat tied to the cleat. "Hello." The word dropped like a stone into the silence. The water gave back only a faint metallic echo, low, 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 as if the reservoir itself were repeating me. A breeze stirred, cold and briny though the nearest sea was hundreds of miles away. The smell raised the hairs on my arms. Not lake water, but tidal flats, old kelp, rusting metal. I set my own box down, fingers slick with sweat despite the chill. The lantern hissed, flame guttering though no wind touched it. Then came a sound. At first it mimicked a fish breaching, a soft plop followed by expanding rings. But it continued, rhythmic, deliberate. Plop, plop, plop like footsteps descending an invisible stair into the water. Each splash came closer to the pier, but the surface remained undisturbed. No ripples, no wake. I leaned forward, straining to see past my own reflection. The black water stared back, a perfect mirror. And then the mirror blinked. Not a fish, not my reflection. Something under the water, watching. The lantern flared white, blinding. When my vision cleared, the tackle box beside it was gone. Only the steady, patient splashes remained, circling closer. The splashes grew sharper, like oars dipped and lifted, though the water stayed perfectly smooth. I tightened my grip on the pier's railing. The wood was damp and slick, but beneath the clammy surface a faint vibration pulsed, as if the pier itself carried a heartbeat. "Who's out there?" I forced the words out, but the fog swallowed them whole. No echo this time. I fumbled for my flashlight, thumb shaking against the switch. The beam punched through the mist only a few yards before dissolving into a flat wall of gray. I swept it across the water, nothing but blank shine. Then the beam struck something, a wet smear clinging to the piling just below my feet. At first I thought it was a mossy patch, until it twitched. A ribbon of dark flesh, slick and glistening, withdrew with a slow, deliberate curl. My stomach tightened. Leech, eel, whatever it was, it had been reaching upward. The lantern's flame leapt high, hissing. From the black below came a new sound, a low, steady hum, not mechanical but alive. It vibrated in my ribs, matching the pier's subtle throb. I backed toward shore, each step groaning louder than the last. Halfway there, the boards ahead of me shuddered, as though something massive slid beneath. Water didn't move. Only the wood did, like a bowstring drawn and released. The hum deepened into a layered chord, a dozen voices holding one endless note. My flashlight dimmed, the beam shrinking to a sickly glow. Through the gray, a shape emerged at the pier's end. It wasn't a person. It was taller, jointless, a column of shadow that seemed carved from the fog itself. The lantern sat at its base, steady now, flame low and blue. I froze. The figure tilted, not bending, but leaning as if the world itself had tipped. A single sound slipped from it, quiet yet carrying across the water. Stay. The voice wasn't loud. It simply arrived inside my head, each letter cold and wet. I stumbled backward. My boot heel caught a warp board and I dropped to one knee. The flashlight skittered off the edge, hit the surface, and didn't sink. It lay atop the water, beams still flickering, as though resting on glass. The figure moved. Not a step, not a glide. It simply ceased to be where it had been and now stood closer, halfway down the pier. No splash, no creak. The hum swelled, vibrating the air until my teeth ached. I lunged to my feet and ran. The last planks blurred beneath me. The fog thickened so fast, I lost sight of shore. Every direction became the same gray corridor. Behind me, boards whispered, not the groan of age, but the quick tap of something gaining ground. I didn't dare look back. The pier ended. My boots struck gravel. I expected relief, but the path to the car was gone. Just more mist, endless and pale. And from that weightless white, the voice again, closer, calm, impossibly near. Stay, the night is long. The fog swallowed the world whole. There was no sense of distance, only the gravel under my boots, proving I hadn't been erased along with everything else. My lungs burned as I spun in place, hunting for the faintest outline of the parking lot, the gate, a tree, anything. The voice came again, soft as the inside of seashell. Stay. No, I rasped, and my own words sounded like it belonged to someone else. A sudden chill slicked the air. Moisture condensed on my jacket in an instant, tiny beads that froze almost as quickly. The cold crept inward, bone deep, as if the reservoir were breathing through me. Then footsteps. They crunched across the gravel, slow and measured. Not behind me, not in front, inside the fog, circling. I turned toward the sound, but it shifted left, right, everywhere at once. Show yourself. My shout cracked, swallowed before it could carry. The crunching stopped. Silence stretched until I could hear the quick double beat of my heart. From the whiteness, a figure began to resolve. First a faint smudge, then a darker blur, then me. My own silhouette walked out of the fog, matching my height, my jacket, the damp baseball cap I'd pulled low. It halted a few feet away. I watched it breathe my breath. Inhale, exhale. Perfectly mirrored. My knees wanted to fold, but I forced them stiff. What do you want? The copy tilted its head the way I do when a radio station fades. Then it smiled, my smile, but wrong. Too wide, too slow, as if someone had learned it from a description. Behind it, shapes stirred, others emerging from the mist. Each one another me, some wearing clothes I'd owned years ago, some barefaced and blank-eyed. A dozen, then more, forming a ring that tightened with each heartbeat. I backed toward the pier, but the gravel softened beneath my boots. The ground rippled like wet canvas. One by one, the figures followed, their footsteps perfectly synchronized with mine. The original copy, the first one, spoke. Not aloud. The words simply arrived, cold and certain. "We are what waits below. You are what will remain." The air pressed against me, heavy as water. My ears popped as though I dived deep. Breath turned to ice in my chest. The figures stepped closer. Their eyes, my eyes, opened wider until nothing but black pools remained. The hum began again, louder than ever, rattling my bones. The pier behind me shuddered, timbers knocking like a heartbeat. Instinct took over. I spun and ran toward the sound of wood, desperate for the solid memory of the pier, though every step felt like pushing through thick surf. The ring of cells didn't chase. They simply turned their heads in unison, following me with those bottomless eyes. I hit the first board, almost slipping. The pier groaned a welcome, or a warning, as the fog thinned just enough to reveal the lantern still burning at the far end. Its light pulsed with that same rhythmic beat, matching the pounding in my skull. And then the voice everywhere at once. "Below is quiet. Below is forever. Join us." I ran, the boards echoing each frantic stride, the water beside me smooth as black glass, until it began to rise. The water lifted without a ripple, a slow, impossible swell that kept its surface perfectly flat. It rose beside the pier like a sheet of black glass, level with my knees, then my hips. I could smell it now, metallic and old like coins left in rain. Behind me, the doubles murmured a soundless chant, their mouths opening and closing in perfect rhythm. The hum deepened until my ribs vibrated like struck bells. Boards beneath my feet shuddered, the nails squealing under strain. The lantern at the pier's end flared white, bleaching the fog. For a heartbeat, I saw everything in painful clarity. The ring of my own faces on shore, the climbing tide of water defying gravity, the reflection of the moon in the rising wall. I bolted toward the lantern. Each step was harder than the last, as though the air itself had thickened. My breath came in ragged gasps. My chest burned with cold. The tide followed. It didn't splash. It simply kept level with me, sliding upward in an unbroken plane. When I reached the lantern, the flame guttered and turned black. Darkness collapsed around me like a closing fist. A whisper brushed the inside of my skull. "Stay. Be still. Below is quiet." "No!" My voice cracked, but the sound was mine alone. The pier lurched downward. My stomach pitched, boards split with sharp reports. The rising water met the planks and flowed across them, icy and slick. My boots sank ankle-deep in seconds. Shapes moved beneath the surface, indistinct shadows, each with the slow, certain grace of something that had never known air. One brushed my calf. The cold was unbearable, a hunger more than a temperature. I turned for shore. Through the fog, I glimpsed the copies, still as statues, their eyes like coins at the bottom of a well. Then one stepped forward and dissolved into the water without a sound. Another followed, and another, until all of them slid silently beneath the black, sending no ripples, no splash. The whisper came again, layered now, many voices folding into one. Return. Become. The pier shuddered once more, a final groan, and the water surged. I leapt, not a graceful jump, just a desperate lunge toward the faint gray where I thought land might be. My knees hit gravel. Cold water slapped my back, but didn't drag me down. I scrambled on hands and feet, the fog thinning with every frantic crawl. Behind me, the hum cut off, leaving a silence so abrupt it rang in my ears. When I looked back, the pier was gone. No lantern, no rising tide, only still, ordinary reservoir, moonlight rippling across its calm surface. I staggered to the car, half expecting the doubles to be waiting. Nothing, just night insects and the smell of wet pine. Driving away, I didn't dare check the mirror until the road curved high above the lake. In the rear window, the water shone like dark glass, perfectly still. And there, for a heartbeat, I saw myself standing on the water's center, motionless, watching. The headlights of an oncoming truck swept the view, and the image vanished. I kept driving until dawn, the scent of salt and rust clinging to my clothes, the echo of that whisper. Below is quiet. Below is forever.